Imagine the most beautiful young widow during the turbulent times of medieval England. At the tender age of 24, her life was shattered when her husband, a valiant knight, fell in battle defending the previous king. To compound her tragic situation, her in-laws have decided to withhold her rightful assets, leaving her unable to provide for her two young sons. This video is not merely a tale of tragedy, but also one of resilience and mystery. Meet Elizabeth Woodville, a widow who would rise to become one of the most renowned queens of England. However, who was the true Elizabeth Woodville beyond her celebrated beauty and amidst the unsettling rumors of witchcraft? Join us as we delve into her story and uncover the truth together. 1. A Scandalous Birth. In 1437, in the modest estate of Grafton Regis in Northamptonshire, a child destined to ascend to unexpected heights was born. Elizabeth Woodville came from a respectable yet unregal lineage. Her father, Sir Richard Woodville, a knight hailing from a family of sheriffs and members of Parliament, was far from the nobility typically associated with royalty. Elizabeth's mother, Jacquetta of Luxembourg, born in 1416, added an element of scandal and defiance to the family's history. As the daughter of the Count of St. Pol, Peter I of Luxembourg, Jacquetta was initially wed to John of Lancaster, Duke of Bedford, the younger brother of King Henry V, making her a dowager duchess upon his death in 1435. Her subsequent marriage to Sir Richard Woodville in 1436 was a bold move that defied social norms. Sir Richard, tasked initially with escorting Jacquetta to England, found himself entwined in a love match that would challenge the expectations of the English court. The couple's marriage, a breach of protocol due to Jacquetta's failure to seek King Henry VI's permission, resulted in a royal reprimand. In 1437, the same year as Elizabeth's birth, they were fined a substantial sum of £1,000, a considerable sum at the time. Their union, born out of genuine affection, stood in stark contrast to the strategic marriages of the time, making Elizabeth's birth not just an addition to the family, but a symbol of resistance against the rigid social hierarchies of the 15th century. However, the tides of fortune shifted in Woodville's favor. Under the influence of Margaret of Anjou, King Henry VI extended pardon to the couple. Margaret, known for her close ties with Jacquetta, was pivotal in transforming Woodville's fate. By 1448, Henry VI further elevated Sir Richard to Baron Rivers, a title that reflected the king's renewed favor and the couple's rising prominence. A blend of controversy, romance, and a gradual ascent in social status thus marked Elizabeth Woodville's early years. From the modest halls of Grafton Regis to the grandeur of the English court, her journey was set against a backdrop of political intrigue and shifting allegiances, foreshadowing the influential role she would come to play in the turbulent politics of England. 2. The blossoming of Elizabeth and her first marriage. As the 1450s dawned over the English countryside, Elizabeth Woodville, a girl of mere 15, blossomed into a young woman of rare beauty. Elizabeth radiated a natural allure, unlike the stern, rigid figures often captured in Tudor portraits. Her parent endowed her with her statuesque figure, shimmering blonde hair, and fair skin, as if kissed by the English sun. But it was her eyes that captivated all who beheld her, enigmatic and mesmerizing. People likened her eyes to the penetrating gaze of a lynx or the fiery intensity of a dragon. In 1452, the young Elizabeth, in the flush of her youth, stepped into the world of matrimony. Sir John Grey of Groby, a knight esteemed in Lancastrian circles, became her husband in a union that was more than a mere joining of hands. It was a fusion of destiny and ambition. Their marriage, celebrated in the small parish church of Groby, was marked by the sincere affection that quickly blossomed between the young bride and her gallant husband. Elizabeth and John welcomed two sons, Thomas and Richard, in the years 1455 and 1458. Their family life, filled with children's laughter and the warmth of mutual love, was a haven. However, the tranquility of their domestic bliss stood in stark contrast to the brewing storm of the Wars of the Roses, a series of dynastic battles that ravaged England. Tragedy struck with the harshness of a winter gale at the Second Battle of St. Albans on 17th of February 1461. Loyal to the Lancastrian cause, Sir John Grey fought valiantly, but ultimately fell, his life claimed by the relentless clutches of war. Elizabeth, now a widow at 23, was left to navigate a world of uncertainty and turmoil. In the wake of her loss, Elizabeth found herself at a crossroads. Her striking beauty, once a source of admiration, became her shield and armor in the unpredictable game of politics and survival. 3. Seeking an audience with the king. The year 1461 marked a significant turning point in the Wars of the Roses. King Edward IV, the young Yorkist king, ascended to the throne, which led to a shift in power and added further complexity to Elizabeth's position as a Lancastrian widow. For Elizabeth, the 3 years after her husband's death were filled with betrayal and hardship, as her in-laws, the Greys, failed to fulfill their promise of supporting her and her children. In 1464, the 26-year-old Elizabeth was in a dire situation. As a single mother of 2, she faced the harsh realities of a society that provided little support to women in her position. Determined to secure her children's future and reclaim what was rightfully theirs, Elizabeth boldly sought an audience with King Edward IV. Initiating such a meeting went against her Lancastrian allegiance, but her desperation and the need to find a solution drove her. Elizabeth chose a symbolic location for this fateful meeting, an ancient oak tree known for its sprawling branches and the legends it harbored. Under this tree, Elizabeth awaited the arrival of the king, a man she knew only as the political adversary whose soldiers killed her husband. Dressed in the somber garb of widowhood and holding her 2 young sons and their patents, her determination was as evident as her beauty. 4. Elizabeth under the giant oak tree. In the shadow of an ancient oak tree, Elizabeth Woodville stood with a poise that belied her inner turmoil. Clad in the dark hues of widowhood, she found herself at a precipice in the year 1464. As a single mother bereft of her husband, she faced a society indifferent to her plight. Her eyes, reflecting determination and vulnerability, scanned the horizon for King Edward IV, a man she had known only as an adversary. As Edward approached, there was a palpable tension between them. Elizabeth presented her case with a steady voice that carried the weight of her struggles. She spoke as a widow and a mother, fighting for her children's future. In her words, Edward sensed not desperation, but a resilience that commanded respect. Despite his reputation for being captivated by beauty, Elizabeth's unwavering spirit captivated him. When Edward and Elizabeth first met, a beautiful and intricate courtship began to unfold. Edward, accustomed to being surrounded by compliant individuals, found himself captivated by Elizabeth's dignified resistance. Her refusal to settle for anything less than being treated as an equal, and her unwavering dedication to ensuring her children's rights were protected, not only ignited a powerful desire within Edward, but also earned his utmost admiration. As their forbidden romance progressed, Elizabeth faced numerous challenges in navigating the complexities of their relationship. Yet amidst these obstacles, she discovered herself irresistibly drawn to the king's unexpected depth of character. It was through their connection that she began to unravel the layers of Edward's personality and uncover the genuine compassion and empathy he possessed. Edward and Elizabeth defied expectations and created a love story for the ages that continues to inspire us all. 5. The Secret Wedding, making Elizabeth the Queen. On May 1st, 1464, less than 3 weeks after the meeting under the oak tree, a clandestine ceremony would change history forever. Elizabeth Woodville, a widow from the Lancastrian faction, and King Edward IV, the ruler of the Yorkists, stood before a small gathering in the secluded chapel of Grafton Regis. The chapel was quiet except for the soft murmur of the few witnesses. Records showed that only the bride's mother and 2 ladies attended. Dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, Elizabeth stood next to Edward. Her eyes, reflecting a mix of emotions, mirrored the seriousness of what they were about to do. For Edward, marrying a commoner, especially a Lancastrian, was an unprecedented move that could stir controversy and anger among his Yorkist supporters. The ceremony was brief yet deeply significant. As the priest pronounced them husband and wife, the reality of their actions started to sink in. Elizabeth, who was once a widow struggling to ensure her children's future, had now become the Queen of England. This title brought challenges and dangers, but in Edward she had found an unexpected partner and protector. In the days that followed, the secret of their marriage remained closely guarded. However, like all secrets, it eventually came to light, causing shockwaves throughout the English court. Elizabeth Woodville's remarkable journey from obscurity to the throne was a captivating tale of love, ambition, and intrigue. It stood as a testament to her resilience and the king's unwavering affection for her. What's next? In just 3 weeks, Elizabeth Woodville, a Lancastrian widow, went from obscurity to becoming the Queen of England. Her secret marriage to King Edward IV defied all precedents and caused discontent among the Yorkist ranks. Prominent figures such as the Earl of Warwick, also known as the Kingmaker, and Edward's brother, George, Duke of Clarence, were agitated, viewing her rise as a threat to their power and influence. What consequences will this union bring for the kingdom? How will Elizabeth navigate the complex web of political intrigue and opposition? Her story continues to unfold, filled with the promise of triumphs and trials during the most turbulent times of a divided nation. Please join us for more videos about Elizabeth Woodville and more fascinating women in English and world history.